During my trip of 2021, I made some stops at some places of interest, let's call it, the places that I like to go. And one of these stops would be in Maryland at the Battlefield of Antietam. I am at the Antietam National Battlefield, where obviously the Battle of Antietam was fought in 1862. Very important battle. It's considered to be a Union victory, although from what I understand it was technically a draw. Blah blah blah. They're about to open up, so I can get in there and see. Let's see here. It's just about 9 o'clock. I'll just walk around, get a view of the land, all these monuments. Heard some people talking earlier. They've been trying to recreate where the fences were and how the battlefield would have actually looked. Because nobody thought about trying to preserve it. This was mostly all just farmland back then. So you can see off there, that's where the battle was fought. Actually, I don't really know a whole lot about the battle. I just know there was one bloody bridge. It had the day with the single most casualties. Well, there's some good news and bad news. The good news, Battlefield's open. I'm going to have it pretty much to myself. The bad news is it's probably going to be kind of a little bit drizzly like this the whole time. Not only that, the movie that they have is actually, the movie that they have on this is actually in storage. They're doing some renovations, so I can't see the movie, which probably explained the whole battle. But I got a brochure and I got the virtual tour to walk around. So, well, that'll make more sense. What do we got here? The 12th Regiment of New York. Battle of Antietam. 8 killed, 93 wounded. Ooh. So, I believe it was a hot when they had the battle. See, okay. I think that's my first stop right over there. But I want to see what this monument is too. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. The state of New York, in commemoration of the service of its officers and soldiers, the Battle of Antietam, September 17th, 1862. Okay, what I know about the battle, not a whole lot. Generally, this was his first invasion of the North. Basically, what I think that happened is, I don't know the whole story of like how things, I think, you know, Lee was in fortified positions and the North came after him, and when they came after him, they were able to kind of like basically fight a draw. I guess both sides, I think both sides attacked each other, and the most was at the worst fighting was, the most fierce fighting was at Burnside's Bridge. And that's where, like, I think 23,000 people died in one day here, so especially bloody. After the battle, it was, I think McClellan, or whoever the general was, decided it took too long to attack Lee to try and destroy the army, which Lincoln wanted him to do. At Antietam, the opening and rolling terrain prevented the artillery of both armies by placing cannon high ground, blue and gray lake, would quickly strike enemy pursuits at great distance. Over 500 cannons thundered across the room for 12 hours. The other was separate, specialized branches of the army, supported by the infantry, basically, ba 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 ba. Okay. Confederates definitely Lee. Batteries here throughout the morning. Union infantry aimed their attacks towards this high ground and the Dunkirk church. 25% of his men were killed or wounded, and 60 of his horses were killed. Later, he remembered what a terrible morning. Lee wrote, a converging storm of iron slammed into the battery's front. Horses sent screaming, blah, 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 needlessly. Okie dokie. So, all right. Just got to get my bearings. And off we go on the tour. Antietam, for those who don't know, is a Civil War battle which occurred in the North. It was Lee's first invasion of the North, which occurred in 1862. Now, the Union Army was McClellan. The Army of Northern Virginia was obviously commanded by Robert E. Lee, and they would face off. The battle itself would be a draw and would pretty much be fought on one single day. And this is how you can see the battlefield. It's not an incredibly well-kept battlefield, since, again, nobody was really thinking about preserving these things because tourism wasn't really so much of a thing back then. But they are attempting to do it. So you can download an app which actually helps you guide on your self-guided tour. Again, not much was open because of COVID restrictions. This will follow basically the first part. The battle was really fought in 3 sections. This is where the start. This is called Dunkirk Church. This was actually the prominent where it started. So, the Union came from kind of the north and the east, and the south had probably, you know, kind of more of the west. Because obviously Washington's to our east. So, So the night before the battle was rainy and dreary. Over 15,000 soldiers, Union soldiers, crossed the creek and moved into position in the far north of the field. At dawn, they attacked. Next 4 hours, the woods and fields changed hands countless times in horrendous combat. You can see where I am, and right in front of me would have been the Confederate lines, probably on those hills, over like on top of those hills, where they would have set their lines. And Hooker would have come from up in that direction, and obviously the 12th Mansfield Corps came from over there, and then there was a 2nd Corps that came from over there. This was the start of the battle. In reality, Union attacks broke down to a series of uncoordinated assaults because of the confusion, terrain, smoke, and noise. Attack the Confederate left, attack the Confederate right, attack the center. Yeah, it was McClellan who was in charge of the army. It makes sense. He kind of sucked as a general. He'd run for president and lose in 1864. Reserve Artillery, Longstreet. These are all, I guess there were some woods around here. They've cleared it out. So, what is this, 2, 3? You know, they've actually, a lot of the states have put, have paid for memorials for their soldiers that were here. Infantry commanded by Major Great Infantry, the 5th, Ohio. Even the South sometimes. In Gettysburg, the South sent memorials to their soldiers that fought there. See if they did this in Antietam. So just kind of recap. As the Union moved in to the Confederate positions, the battle pretty much started on the 16th. Like at night, and there were skirmishing, but the real battle all occurs on the 17th. That's when the majority of the fighting and practically 90-some-odd% of the casualties will occur. It'll be one of the bloodier days, but there will be bloodier ones yet to come in other subsequent battles. This will be Hooker in the north, coming down. Point on it. This is called the North Woods. I guess there's a trail you can walk to go all the way up. Apparently, at the Battle of Antietam, this is where the 1st Division camped. And those buildings, I guess, have been reconstructed so that they kind of look like what they did then. This is where they camped before they decided to march in that direction, because that's where Dunkirk Church is, where the battle is. They stopped here, and then they marched. kind of an interesting tidbit is right before Dunkirk, there was a cornfield that was ready for harvest. So the corn was, you know, eye height. So they couldn't actually see anything that was going, and the Rebs were ready for them. 7th Regiment, Pennsylvania. They're going to talk more about the actual battle, but this is where they camped. They had crossed the Antietam Creek, and they were all set up, ready to go. Dun, dun, dun. This isn't much to look at, but right here is called the East Woods. Okay, this is where the battle actually started. So, this is not actually from the north. Northwood over there, that'd be the north. These were the people who were sweeping in from the east, who would be attacking kind of on the east flank. They're the ones who started the battle. As they were coming in here, they got into those woods. You can kind of see trees. I guess this was all woods right here. And that's where they bumped into Confederates. And it was like shortly before dawn when they started, and the battle started then. It took them like 3 hours to finally push the Confederates out of here. The Confederates suffered about 50% casualties, and a lot of the divisions or the troops that saw a battle would see in the neighborhood of about 50% casualties of dead and wounded. And apparently they didn't push them too far. They pushed them basically back to, these would go back and forth, and they'd push them back to the cornfield, and that cornfield would be taken and retaken over and over and over again. Nobody really knows, because it was kind of like attack, counterattack, and both sides kind of did that. So this is where it started. This is where it officially started. I guess the fighting never really stopped. They say, like, it stopped. It started right before dawn, and even well into the night, the pickets were still firing at each other. They say they were close enough they could hear each other walk. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but they were probably close enough that they were shooting at each other for the rest of the night. So that would have sucked to be a picket. We are. This is the cornfield. Okay. Now those woods over there, that was actually done on the 16th. Okay. So on the 16th, that's when the battle technically began. On September 17th is when the bloodiest day will occur, and that will start here in the cornfield. Out in front of you would have been a cornfield, and the corn would have been ripe for harvest. So it would have been about, you know, the same height as people. And the Union marched right out into it, and right into Stonewall Jackson. It was Hooker and Mansfield coming down to bump into Jackson. And what they did is basically, it was just absolutely brutal fighting with massive casualties on both sides. They even say it right there. Hood's division had the highest percentage of killed or wounded in any Confederate regiment of over 82%. 82%. In today's, just to put that into kind of today's speak, if we had a battle and there was like 10% or 15% casualties, we would call it a bloodbath. They had 82% in one regiment, okay? And that was, I guess that's the flag of that unfortunate Texas brigade. They say it went back and forth and was captured. Like, they initially drove the Confederates off, then the Confederates counterattacked and took it back. It changed hands no less than 6 times. And it was there from 5:30 to 9:30, 15,000 Unions and 12,000 Confederates. But at the end, they drove them back towards Dunkirk Church. And that's how the battle kept going. Here I am at the Westwoods, or like they like to call it, the Westwoods Massacre. So what happened is, over there is the cornfield, okay? Stonewall Jackson reformed his line, basically along those woods and that fence over there, to hold back the Union assault. So Sedgwick came in, and there was a little confusion. So his Sumner, who probably was supposed to support him, was moving up in that direction towards the sunken road. Sedgwick slammed into Stonewall Jackson, and they were barely holding. They weren't going to hold him back. As fortune would have it, 2 other divisions from McLaws and Walker, and you can see it here on this, came right in on the flank of Sedgwick and basically just started massacring the Union troops. They took huge losses, over 2,200 casualties in 20 minutes. A lot of people. This was only about an hour. That was a lot. They had to retreat, but because the Union had pretty good fortified positions up above, the rebels couldn't take advantage of driving these people back, because there was plenty of artillery and reinforcements right back there up to the north that they weren't able to fort. And this is still at 10:30, and we've already had a number of people dropped. Thousands, tens of thousands already. And that was the first section of Antietam. I'll do a part 2 with the second, which will include the attack on the middle and, of course, Burnside's bridge.